Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful you can join us for another week.
We sure are.
And today we're really fortunate. We have Jean Atman with us. She is a soul evolution specialist, transformation teacher, and energy intuitive, and is a leading expert on how to break free of negative life experiences for good. She is well known in her industry as the go-to girl for helping people heal past traumas so that they can live a life filled with potential purpose and ease. So welcome, Jean. We're really excited to have you on the podcast today with us.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you ladies.
So we read your bio. Can you tell us a little bit about how you kind of got started in this and what your mission is with everything that you do?
Yeah, my big why, I think I came in here as a young child feeling like I had big work to do here on this planet, and I didn't realize that the big work was actually on myself. So I've been focusing a lot of my life on helping other people, while simultaneously really working through a lot of personal things myself. I was born into a home with a lot of toxicity and abuse, and it took a long time to sort of unpack all of that and the reasons why that was happening and the beliefs that surrounded that and how it was kind of continuing to perpetuate toxic cycles in my life. So once I finally dove into my inner worlds, I really realized the main reason why I'm here, and that's to heal myself as well as help others do that as well. So it's a pretty big mission, but I can't imagine doing anything else. You know, it just feels so natural to be in this position, and I know that's kind of why I'm here.
Nice.
Well, and it's good to know that, right? And it's nice that you can use, something that maybe wasn't such a positive beginning to, help heal people and yourself along the way with it. So I think that's really admirable.
It is
For
very
sure. Thank you. Yeah, I kind of call this my get her done lifetime. And I also say I think I didn't read the fine print before coming in because I think I would have probably chosen something different. But while I'm here, I feel like, there's so many people that we go through a lot of things and we tend to focus on the negative parts of it because it's just so loud. It's hard not to sometimes. But when you can always look for the lesson and the wisdom gained from experiences, I feel like you can lead a much more graceful life.
Absolutely. So how do you think that you would quiet down some of these chatter that is going on around us, rather externally or internally?
Yeah, chatter as far as like the kind of the collective consciousness and everything that's happening around us in the world, or for people personally, or a little bit of all of it.
Little bit of all of it.
All of the above. Yeah, the chatter really has been quite loud in the world lately, as a lot of things are, shaking loose and breaking down and things like that. And it can be pretty intimidating, I think, for a lot of people who are used to structure and things being a certain way. So it can kind of pull forward a lot of fear in people, I think. And so I found that the best thing that I could do personally is to sort of separate myself from a lot of the chaos and just really focus on what's happening inside and internally and in my small orbit of people. And so I find that when I do that, I can live a much more peaceful existence because I'm not caught up in all the things that I can't change, but I'm focusing on what I can change. And so I know from an energetic perspective, that's huge because when we can stay balanced and centered within ourselves, that ripples out to, unimaginable ways and places. And that really does help to elevate everyone else. But if we stay stuck in the fear and all the chaos and things like that, our own energy isn't helping the collective at all. So I think meditating, communing in nature, eating good food, being around people that you love, like really kind of getting back into the simple things in life can really make a huge difference in your perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Because
Nope.
go ahead.
I just find you have to pull yourself away from all the noise. If you don't, your clarity just goes up in smoke. And I don't like that. We don't like that. It's about keeping yourself grounded and, bringing in all the possibilities around us that can still come, right? Not closing off. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things I heard is I was listening to a Mel Robbins podcast, and she's got this saying where she says, let them. So it's like, for me, it's a similar to this, because it's like, if somebody wants to do something, just let them. Don't get caught up in all the chaos and all the making the stories that go with it. Just let them do their thing and be you, and you live a much, I think, more peaceful life. So
Yeah.
that really stuck with me when I heard that.
I love that. It reminds me of something that when you're managing someone close to you, and if you have a different perspective of how they should do things than what they are, which is typical in close relationships, right? But I learned this a while ago, and it really stuck with me. And it's kind of similar to what you said. It's, I want what you want for you.
I like that.
Yeah, I like
You
that
know,
too. Actually, that's a
and
good.
yeah, and it's like, I might not see your perspective. I might not understand your soul path and why you're making the choices that you're making, and that's okay. Like, I want what you want for you, and whatever that is. And it kind of gives a sense of freedom to both people,
Mhm.
releases control, and lets that person really kind of take their own power back and make those choices for themselves. And so I love what you just said, because I live by things like that. It does make a
Yeah.
huge difference.
Well, yeah, because then it makes sense to me, because I think that's just human nature, is that we control ourselves. And so we try to control the situations and the people around us.
Yeah.
And when they're not doing the things that we think inside of our hearts that they should be doing, we try to control or give our feedback to them. And I don't always know that that's a positive thing, because life has changed. You think about, even when you say stuff like, oh, when I was young, and it's like, but it's not that world anymore, and things have changed so much. And
Oh my God.
watching these, like, we raise our granddaughter, and just watching some of the things that she has to meander through her life with, is
Mhm.
like, oh, thank goodness I didn't have to do those things. Thank goodness there
Right.
wasn't social media really when we were kids, and everything
Mhm.
you do is out there.
Right. Especially for those of us that were a little rebellious back in the day.
Especially those ones.
No. Yeah, but we really operate from our filters a lot of times. And so our perspective is such a different, perspective than someone else. So even offering advice to people, sometimes it might not fit for where they're headed. So yeah, I agree with you that it's good to just let people sort of come to their own conclusions, make their own decisions, and operate from that place of knowing themselves versus trying to impose your ideals or opinions on other people. I think so many people are hyper focused on others so they don't have to focus on themselves. It's a sort of a defense mechanism that we do sometimes. But once you start to kind of dive into your inner worlds and you realize it's fascinating and there's so much to do and see and all these things inside, no one's got time for anybody else's stuff. So it's
Plus
probably a good thing.
you realize too what you've learned along the way, because you had to go through your own mistakes and how they have
Mhm.
made you the person that you are. So, these people too have to walk their steps in the sand so that they can, see where they're going to be going in their futures too. And some of them, hopefully through these podcasts, it helps them get where they need to go sooner than later.
That's right. That's right. I do think everyone's out there looking for wisdom, and we've been sort of closed off for so long. And so I love, what you guys are doing to really bring awareness to people and knowing that there's a different perspective out there. And people are searching for it. It's accessible now, more so than ever before. So it's definitely contributing to the massive awakening that we're going through.
Yeah.
Yes, well, thank you. Yeah, we love doing this, and we love getting to, have conversations with people like you that, have all this wisdom and some experience to help guide people along their path, and how to deal, in relationships, and find yourself, and meander through life to
Yeah.
live your best life,
Yeah.
right? Whatever that looks like. Because I think everybody's definition of what a good life is different. And I think that's something we don't always embrace about other people, is that, what my definition of a good life is probably not my neighbor's, but
Mhm.
doesn't mean that either of us are making a bad choice. It just makes we're making the choice for us, right?
Right.
Yeah, I do think there's a huge movement towards authenticity and really tuning into what we want. I think so many of us have been operating from places where we're running those programs of people pleasing and overachiever and all the things to try to sort of pacify those wounds of why they're happening. A lot of times people are people pleasers because they have a rejection wound that is unhealed. And so they're just trying desperately to feel like they fit in, they're accepted, they're loved. And it's like once you go in and heal that stuff and you find out who you actually are underneath all of those hurts, it's fascinating to see who people are at their essence, you know?
It is.
And when you can live from that authentic place and not feel swayed by what everybody else is doing or what they think you should be doing, but just really be you. I mean, they say that the strongest vibration and the strongest energy is authenticity. Imagine if you are being authentic, how much you can create for yourself. But so many of us go through life not knowing who we are, what we want. You know, we think we know, but until you really understand yourself, you know, it's tricky to see through all the hurt sometimes.
Yes.
So I love helping people sort of excavate all the stuff that's not really working for them and really get back into who they are truly and who they're meant to be.
So how do you go through your sessions, like to teach people? Like, is there courses you take and you teach them, walk them through it that way individually, or do you do it in groups as well?
Yeah, all of the above. I've been doing this work for over 2 decades now, so I've got quite a few different things under my belt. I do lead groups. Occasionally, a couple times a year, I'll do some group work with people. I love the private sessions because I feel like everybody's got their individual journeys, and to be able to really dive into that depth, I find it very, very powerful and profound for people.
Mhm.
But I do, the basis of my work is energy. I've been working with energy for decades, and I love to be able to see where the blocks are, what they're attached to in this lifetime or other lifetimes in different dimensions, to see really what's truly blocking people from their greatness. And once we clear that stuff, then it just kind of comes with a sense of sort of a nervous system decompression where they're not fighting against themselves internally anymore. They're sort of coming into a place of calm and peace and clarity from that place because they're not spending so much effort and energy fighting things that they don't need to anymore. They can
Yeah.
just really see who they are and where they want to go. And it kind of simplifies the process when you decongest people of their stuff. So I don't know if that is kind of a convoluted answer to it,
Yeah,
but
it's great.
um,
That's great.
but yeah, I do. I love to work with people privately. I also run groups. I do retreats. I facilitate symposiums sometimes for like larger groups of people. So just kind of depends on what I'm feeling inspired for and what I feel in the collective that's kind of needed. I just sort of respond to that.
So I saw that you work with traumas and things like that with people. And can you give us sort of an example of something that really sticks out in your mind that you've done?
Yeah, I work with a lot of people that have suffered narcissistic parents, especially. We tend to, and I'm a, you know, a survivor of that myself.
Okay.
But coming from that perspective, you tend to develop certain belief systems about life, how the world works. And until you start to challenge those belief systems, you continue to draw in similar experiences because we don't typically draw in what we want, we draw in who we are. And if those belief systems say that life can't be good or that everybody's cruel or whatever that is, we tend to continue to perpetuate those cycles. And so, in fact, this one woman in particular, she's very dear to my heart. She had a really toxic mother, very, very narcissistic, very cruel to her. And so she was never able to find peace and relax and through her nervous system. She was always on guard, never really feeling safe in life. And what happens is when we are navigating some deep internal hurt, we don't want to strip away the protective mechanisms that have been placed around people, right? Because
Right.
that leaves them feeling vulnerable and unsafe. So we go in and we heal the actual wounds first, and then we let the defense mechanisms fall away as they're ready to. So it's a much more peaceful process. And how I do that is I go and I look and we identify where those core wounds started. If they're we do some inner child work. We go back into those places that are so deeply tucked into the subconscious mind, and we access those places and we heal from that origin point. And what happens when you heal from the origin is basically when you have a trauma, you are on a timeline or a trajectory that contains that trauma. Anything else that's similar to that, let's say a narcissistic abusive mom, anything that's similar to that will be magnetized to you because that's what's contained there. When you go back and you heal the origin point, you pivot, and it's almost like rewriting a whole new timeline. So when you start to walk a different pathway, because that origin basically never existed from this point, all of a sudden, everything that compounded on top of it also dissolves.
Beautiful.
So it allows people so much freedom from a compounded life of trauma when you can get into the actual origin of the pain.
Mhm.
So it makes rapid changes really accessible.
I like that. Because I think a lot of people that I know that have dealt with either narcissistic or cruel parents or those kind of things, I feel like are very guarded people. Sometimes they're very wild because it's almost like that's their defense mechanism, right? Is if I'm wild, then people aren't going to try to control me and those kind of things. But they're also very, very guarded and they're very hard to get into, kind of get that initial talking to them to let them at least open up some of their stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, very true. That's all the defense mechanisms that have been placed throughout the years and just not really trusting people because they didn't have that core foundation of trust and feeling loved unconditionally or whatever it is. We all go through so much stuff as children a lot of times, and we forget sometimes that we come in here to learn lessons. I was asking guidance years ago, like, why are we here? What is the purpose of this craziness? And they said, it's to evolve. If you're not evolving, you're kind of missing the point of being here.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, I've been doing that a lot. So I'm like on track. And then I asked again years later, and what came through was we're here to love. I mean, think about how simple that is, when you stop striving or keeping up with the Joneses or all the things, but just to really love other people, love other humans, show up with compassion, think about how that changes the world. It can be such a different experience. Um, but when we get stuck in that pain, that's where life gets a little bit tricky and loud. And the universe does such a beautiful job at showing us what's not working if
Mhm.
we're listening. And they will get louder and louder and louder until we do listen. But like as you were saying, once we can kind of drop those defense mechanisms and start to soften through our field, start to soften through our heart, the people that are typically the have deep wounds that they're still carrying do have so much guarding around their hearts, but they crave it so much. And so when you can release those old defense mechanisms and actually feel safe to share love, all of a sudden the love that you've been craving can come in. And that's what happened with my client too, where she was married to a wonderful man. And she says, I know that he's here for me all the time. I know he's trying all the time to love me. I just can't seem to let him. And through our work together, she finally opened up. And now she feels how much he's been trying to shower her with love, where she just couldn't receive it before. So when you go in and do that deeper level healing, it really can be so life-changing with the most basic needs of giving and receiving love, that some people just feel really challenged by.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there something that a person could do then on their own? Let's just say they want to start this before they're looking for someone to help them. Is there something
Mhm.
that they could do as a jumping off point that would help them with this?
Yeah, many things. So the first thing I always recommend is meditation. And some people say, oh, I just can't meditate. I just can't meditate. My mind is just will not calm down. And I always tell people the goal of meditation is not to quiet your thoughts or control your thoughts. It's to not let your thoughts control you.
Mhm.
So in meditation, if your mind is busy, give it something to do. So what that means is when I first started meditating, I was in the same place. And I started thinking, okay, so my mind is definitely not going to calm down. So let's focus it someplace else because it wants to work. So it's like, okay, how am I feeling today? Where am I feeling the tension? Can I release this tension through my body? What would it take to release this tension? So take that curious mind, that curiosity, and you know, kind of shut down all of the miscellaneous things that it wants to go and refocus it. What's happening inside? What's happening inside? What's happening inside? So in that way, you find that you are really good at meditating. You just need to give that mind a focus. And then all of a sudden you get super amazing at it because you're like, I can heal myself because I'm just focusing on what I feel and releasing the tension in my body, or releasing the pain in my body or whatever. So from that energetic perspective, I love to go in and see what's happening on the inside, you know. And if you know that you have heart blocks, you can kind of feel it in your system. So if you have like a trigger or something that comes in that feels uncomfortable and you're emotionally charged with that, go in and say, where am I feeling this in my body? So a lot of times it's in the chest. Chest is constricted. I'm having trouble breathing. I feel a lot of tension there. Okay, so can we go in and send breath there? Can we be with the feeling? And literally feel whatever you're feeling. I know it's uncomfortable, but that feeling just desperately wants to be heard and seen and honored. And when you go in there and you feel your feelings, what you find is it just dissolves. It's no longer being stuffed down, suppressed down, held in your system, paralyzed in that time. It's moving through you. You're giving it an access point outward. And the more you do that, the more you get a chance to know yourself, understand your feelings, feel honored, and you start to create that energy within you and around you. And then you wait and watch and see how the world and the universe starts to respond to you differently because you are honoring yourself.
I like that.
So it's quite simple. And the thing is, the universe is not complex. It really isn't. We complicate the crap out of things all the
Oh, yeah.
time.
Oh, yeah. Overthink.
We all do it.
Mhm.
So when you can remember, the more simplified you can do things, the more profound it typically is. So breathe, meditate, walk in nature, feel your feelings, sleep. You know, it's things that you're doing anyways. It's just kind of adding some mindfulness around it because a lot of people are so overwhelmed. They're like, oh, I can't even think about doing one more thing to make change. I'm so in it. And so let's use what you're already doing and simply enhance that. You know, so you're not feeling more overwhelmed, but actually feeling less because you're contributing to your care. So that's kind of my recommendations to get people started.
Yeah.
True.
No, that's good. And I think too, with just like you were saying, it's so simple. And just by doing that, I feel like people would feel some of that weight come off of their shoulder. They would find some of the things that they could probably release so they don't have as many things on it and improve their health, right? Because I'm a true believer of what we say is really important. Like I hurt my neck, and so I did go against what I usually do. And I was like, oh, my neck, my neck. And then the one day I moved in bed and I was like, my neck. I'm like, yeah, it's getting stronger every day. So, and it switched it. And then actually my neck hasn't been hurting me. So, because I think when we say these things outwardly, that, we're putting those out there. And, it's like if somebody gives you a diagnosis of something, it's like, okay, now you can help, because I truly believe we can heal ourselves by, like you
Mhm.
said, focusing on where the blockages are in our body. And you
Mhm.
know and you do a lot of that when you're doing your Reiki and things like that. You've been dealing with people, getting them to release their
Oh,
blockages and
yeah.
things.
So much so, and it surprises me how many people are so blocked
Mhm.
and they don't even know
Yeah.
it. Eh?
Yeah.
They don't even know it. And yeah, so when you do start doing Reiki or what you're doing, it's you always you say something to them like, no, 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 no. Okay, let me work on you some more. Yeah, yeah.
We'll just keep it between us right now.
You're not ready to hear this.
That's right. Yeah, it does. It's there's definitely a lot of resistance that come up originally, especially when you're first started working on somebody,
Yeah.
because they just don't know. They don't know that they're imbalanced. And then when you start to balance, then you recognize how imbalanced you've been. But and really the best way to identify those imbalances are, how is your life working? If your life is working smoothly, seamlessly, awesome. You're in a good place energetically. If it's not, it's simply trying to get your attention that something wants some help.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, I encourage people to reach out to somebody if they don't know how to get in their stuff. There's so much out there right now to help people access their inner worlds and really determine, kind of whittle down what is actually happening so that they can move through it. But to your point, a lot of people kind of can tend to spiritually bypass where they think that thoughts are important. And so they only focus on the thoughts. And so no matter what, I'm going to be positive, I'm going to stay positive. And what happens is it doesn't necessarily work that great from that perspective because your thoughts are only a small part of it. It's your emotions, your subconscious beliefs, all the ingrained, aspects that is in your cellular tissue that is really running the show and driving the bus.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you're feeling terrified, but you're like, it's going to be okay, there's a conflict there. There's a misalignment there. And so the best way for people to get aligned is to have their thoughts, emotions, and what they do all in the same alignment. So for instance, if you are exhausted at the end of your work week and you've got a gathering to go to and you're thinking, I just don't want to go to this gathering, but you do anyways, you're creating a misalignment, right? Because you don't want to go, but you're doing it anyways.
Right.
Whereas if you say, I know I'm tired, I'm feeling exhausted, I really want to stay here, make a phone call and say, I have a great time. I'll miss you guys, but I just need some me time. That's really honoring yourself. It's creating more alignment within you. So
Mhm.
you're honoring what you feel. You're not bypassing that feeling. And the more you can continue to get in touch with yourself, that's where the sweet spot is of where life can really change. And again, it's very simple. Thoughts, feelings, actions, all in the same place.
And do you think a lot of that is brought on by like traumas or relationships from when we're young?
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially, like I'll use the example of people pleasing. We learn early on if we can make that person happy or keep them content, we can stay safe.
Mhm.
So you start to develop this defense mechanism of people pleasing. And then you carry that forward with you in everything you do. And so the program that runs inside your head says, I need to keep everybody around me okay, and then I can be safe.
Right.
But what happens is you're not safe because you're ignoring and neglecting your own needs for the sake of other people based on an old program, an old and outdated program that is no longer relevant to you now.
That makes sense. I know my granddaughter was doing that. So somebody had asked her family or somebody, come stay the night. Oh, I miss you so much, blah, 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 blah. And she'd always go. And then she was kind of getting, I don't want to say burnt out, but she was just kind of,
Overwhelmed.
her energy wasn't good.
Yeah.
So I said,
Mm.
you don't have to go. I don't. I said, no, just say
Oh,
no. Just say, sorry, not this weekend. Sorry, not right now. Or you know what? She made plans with her friends the other day. And in the end, she's like, you know what? I just kind of really, I'm not feeling it anymore. I'm just like, don't
mhm.
go. So she didn't. So she's
Gosh.
starting to honor that place in herself. And I think, for a long time before I kind of came into the picture and stuff, those are the things that she was being told, right? Like you have to go to these people's places. You need to, and I think her as an example, but I think so many of us do that, like you said, right? You're burnt out, you don't want to go. We feel that guilt,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then it's hard to release that guilt.
It is. And we're always worried about the other guy. If you say it, how you're going to reflect on them, sort of thing, right? And it's not supposed to be about that. It's supposed to be,
Yeah.
like it happened to me on the weekend. We were thinking about going someplace and we just got back from work and I went, I'm so exhausted. I don't even want to think about tomorrow. I just want to
Yeah.
think about tonight, relaxing, and I'll let you know tomorrow. So, because on the night it was when he asked, it was like, I'm not going. And then they got next morning, I thought, yeah, okay, I'll go. But it's
Yeah.
just matter, but it was about what I wanted to do. And I said, you
Mm.
can go. You can go all
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah.
But.
Something that I practiced long ago, and I practiced this and practiced it and practiced it. Whenever someone would ask me something, I'd be like, oh yeah, yeah, I got that all day long. I can do that for you. And wouldn't even hesitate saying yes. And I didn't realize that it was such a default, until I did. And then I started practicing, I'll think about it. Or I'll get back to you. I'll let you know. I'll think about it. And so that I was reprogramming myself to say that, to reply with, let me think about it, instead of just yes. which was
Yeah.
such a default. And so giving yourself, to your point, giving yourself that time and space where it would be a hard pass right now, may or may not feel better tomorrow, I'll let you know. But to give yourself that space to feel through it,
Yeah.
is such a gift to yourself.
Yes.
I have a hard time understanding people that can't say no. They just don't have it in their vocabulary. And it doesn't matter how much you try to say to them, all you have to say is no. You don't
Yeah.
have to explain yourself, why do you feel you have to explain yourself why you're saying no?
Yeah.
People should be able to accept the fact that, no, I just don't want to do that today.
Yeah, that really stems from deep-seated trauma that is still kind of an active wound when they're still operating from those defense mechanisms of people pleasing, of overachieving, of showing up for other people. All of that is just a really big defense mechanism of trauma.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Do you
Yeah.
think sometimes that we just take things too personally, like somebody's reaction and then we internalize that? Is that something that we brought forward from our childhood or from another life or those kind of things? Or is that just something that we've gained along our journey?
Yeah, I think yes to all of the above. Sometimes it stems from way back when, sometimes it's a learned behavior, sometimes it's all of it, but um yeah, it takes an awareness to know that you're doing it first because we operate on such default mode. Like you get up in the morning and you probably do the exact same things in the exact same order every time you get up. It's default. We don't even think about it. And those are one of those things that we don't even think about typically. We just do because it's what we've always done.
Yeah.
When you start challenging those behaviors, then you can change it.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
So
ahead.
do you think it's good to change your morning routine or change your evening routine? Like just to mix it up, does that help with regulating yourself and to find more out about what your wounds are inside of you?
Yeah, I think change is fabulous. And what it does is every time you deviate from what you normally would do, you signal to the universe that I'm ready for something different.
Nice. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So if you're wanting change, even going to a different restaurant, ordering a different meal at your favorite restaurant, taking a different route home, all of those things, anything that you can change and mix up a little bit, kind of alleviates that. It reminds me of a dog that's on a chain. It runs in circles and it just continues to dig in this groove in the circle. It's sort of like that. If you're doing the same things all the time, the only place you can go is that place. But when you start to mix things up a little bit, all of a sudden other things start opening for you that you hadn't had access to before. I
Right.
like to kind of use, and I work with a lot of frequency and vibration for people. Are you familiar with the Hawkins scale of consciousness?
No.
No.
So David Hawkins, he creates the scale, and it basically goes from the lower vibrational energies of like anger and greed and apathy and all the things, and it sort of moves up in the scale to neutrality and then peace and love and enlightenment. So it just kind of goes up in the scale.
Mhm.
And sorry, I had a point to this and now I just lost it. Frequency. So as we are working with frequency, if we're in that lower level, it's sort of like we're in the basement floor, where if the only thing you know is shame and guilt and lack, you're sort of operating in this basement floor. So when you can start to move that elevator up to like the first floor, which is a higher frequency, a higher energetic vibration, all of a sudden you might have like a little bit of peace there or some opportunities. Different things will shift for you. So energetically, your vibration is so important because if you're only dealing with anger and all the lower densities, the only thing you can play with there are other things like that.
Yeah.
So to really allow yourself, like if you're feeling angry, sometimes we get so enraged because we bottle things up so much and then we just explode. And it's like a all or none, black or white kind of thing. But if you can sit with the anger, not project it on someone else, but just sit with it and let yourself be angry, let yourself be really angry, let it be felt until you're kind of done feeling it. And then you're like, okay. So, it can be purposeful to feel those emotions. And then when you've let it dissolved, you're no longer holding it in your system. So you're able to keep yourself in a more elevated space and life functions easier at that place. You're not trying to get someplace where you don't have access to. you're literally allowing more opportunity to come into your experience that way. That makes sense?
Yeah, it makes a
Makes
lot of sense.
So,
So
yeah.
then too, then if you were having, let's just say you were at work or wherever, you were having a bad moment or you're really frustrated that day, if you maybe went and did something different, so if you usually call people, you go to their office and talk to them, can that, just that little bit of a change kind of shift your frequency then to kind of get moving up?
Yeah, especially if you've got a challenge and with someone and you would normally sit on that and sit on your feelings and decide, and I always, this little caveat, I would encourage you to process your emotions first before you bring them to someone else. Because a lot of times,
That's a real.
yeah, because we're thinking, okay, we're angry, we're going to let them know about it. And that's not the most productive way to do that. So be with your emotions, work through them first, and then have a conversation to make the actual shift and change that you're wanting, because it's not going to happen from an emotional place. It just won't. So we're responsible for how we feel. And so take that responsibility for ourselves. Don't be projecting it on someone else to try to get them to fix how you feel. Really be with those feelings in full honesty and raw truth, and then decide what you'd like to do to move forward. But yeah, that's definitely a great way to keep yourself more centered and to keep elevated. And knowing that even the denser, heavier feelings are still productive to keep your elevation high. So if I have like a trigger, let's say a childhood trigger that comes in, and I'm feeling just really out of sorts with it, you know, I'm all about keeping my frequency high. So what I do is I go in and say, okay, where is this? Where did it start? What do I need to unpack this? So I let myself feel it. I identify with where it is in my body. And I'm like, okay, we need to clear the stuff out because I do not want to continue to be poked and triggered here. I don't want to feel this way anymore. So I'm going to feel it with intensity, with magnifying that feeling, going into that space, walking into that darkness and saying, we're done here. We got to dissolve this. And I let myself be productive with the feeling. So I'm not only healing through this present moment, but I'm also going back into where the origin of it and starting to work there. And I'm dissolving this relationship dynamic that used to trigger me. So there's so much that happens within the simple act of going in and feeling your feelings and letting them move through you.
Yeah,
It's amazing how much happens.
it all makes sense to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does make sense. And I feel like so many people that are struggling with anxiety, depression, all these different things, PTSD, all kinds of different things. I feel like what you're saying would relate to that because they've got these traumas that they can't let go of.
Yeah.
And so by, going
Mhm.
inwards, and sometimes you can't do it on your own, so you certainly have to find like someone like yourself or whoever to help you through it.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like would that help these people then kind of alleviate some of that if they were to do that?
Yeah, so depression to me is it's a depressing of the energy. It's carrying too much. It's weighing on you. It's depressing your field is depression. And so a lot of times I find that people are really deeply depressed. They're carrying not only their stuff, but the stuff of other people, their parents, their siblings, all other people. They're literally carrying other people's stuff. And we are not meant to work through other people's stuff. It's not our job. It's not our work.
Right.
The only thing we can do is work through our own. But first, you have to know what's yours and what isn't. So when we start to decongest that, give people back their stuff, then all of a sudden you feel lighter somehow. It's like funny how that happens. you know, Anxiety, same way. It's like the same, coin is the different side of the coin. Anxiety is overwhelm. It's carrying, again, too many moving parts in the field that are creating like a disorientation from your own center. So when we start to clear through that stuff and come back into your center, all of a sudden you're not feeling anxious anymore because the overwhelm has dissolved and
Right.
dissipated.
Mhm.
So we really can do a lot of movement through there. But first, it's recognizing that you're carrying probably a lot of stuff that doesn't even belong to you.
That
And even, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's
Okay.
so true.
Yeah, and even going back to my client with her mom, she was having a really hard time forgiving her mom. And so when I work with people, I get just really attached to their outcome, and I'm very vested in their lives. And in between session, I was asking like, what can we do to really help her forgive her mom so she can alleviate this? And what came through with guidance, it was fascinating. They said forgiving is for giving things back to people. So basically, all of her mom, this narcissism was projected onto my client. It's literally forgiving it all back. To give it all back to her. And so she was carrying all of her mom's stuff. And so we created this energetic ball where she put everything in there that didn't belong to her, that her mom did to her, that was mean or hurtful or abusive or aggressive or whatever, put it all in there, and we sent it back to her. And we're like, this is your stuff. You can do with it whatever you please. You can open it, you cannot open it. All we know is we want it out of this field. And so by forgiving that back, she was able to release that angst that she was feeling within that relationship. And she was finding peace after that because she was no longer carrying her mom's stuff that she was trying to work through, because it didn't even belong to her anyway. So it would have been a lifetime's worth of work to try to work through somebody else's stuff. So when you're left with your own, you can heal.
Yep,
You know?
it's true.
I love that. And I think that's a good, I think a lot of people could adopt that, because it's such a visualization and you're just, yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, I was like, guys, that's brilliant. Thank you. I'm going to use that one a lot.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Well, we saw this girl at a wellness retreat we were at, and she was kind of saying something similar, but it was like suitcases. And she's like, right, I got my suitcases, now I got your suitcases, and now, and then you're like, well, why am I so unbalanced? Why is my hip hurting? Why is right? Well, because you're carrying all these other people's stuff.
Yeah,
Put it down.
right.
That's their luggage. They want it, they're gonna have to carry it with them, right? And
Mm.
made me think of that when you were talking about
Yeah,
that,
it's
of,
good,
of
yeah.
her saying that is like, and another kind of metaphoric thing for like,
Mhm.
if it's not yours, let it go.
Right. And even if it is yours, let it go.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
some of our own stuff is like, really?
right.
Again?
And I mean, I actually use the suitcase analogy too, where the suitcases can be our own trauma,
Right,
and the luggage tags are the wisdom that we gained from those experiences. So
okay.
like, drop off the suitcase and just take the luggage tag. Stick it in your stick it in your pocket, just keep the wisdom,
Lot
let go of
lighter.
the trauma, just lighten your load. You don't have to carry it anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true.
That is so true. And I think that will help people because, we all just want to keep getting better and healthy. I think at our soul essence, I think everybody just wants to live a really good life and, be authentic. We're just
Mhm.
sometimes struggle to get to that point where we know how to do that. And so I think the
Yeah.
advice that you gave is wonderful because
Yes, it is.
people will take that into heart and be able to at least start making maybe some small
Yeah.
steps to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that I find really fascinating I've recently created a new modality. It's hypnoenergetic integration. It's a blend of hypnosis and energy healing. And I find it so powerful because we can access the subconscious mind in ways that are so direct. And so there's so many stories I could share. But it's really to go in, we all have these different parts within us, right? And a lot of times, like I was working with a client earlier today, she had a lot of anger in her field and she's angry all the time. And when we went into her subconscious, our subconscious holds all of our memories. And so things that we aren't aware of reside in the subconscious. And we are so masterful at tucking these things away because we don't want to deal with them because they were very hurtful when they happened. So they're just kind of stuck in there. And so when you can look at the main theme that's not working well in your life, and you know that that is simply a protective mechanism, something trying to keep you safe, you go in there and you talk to that part. So her part was anger. She's angry all the time. So we went and talked to the anger part. And we were like, what is the deal here? So this part was with her since birth, basically, was there to keep her safe and protected, was there to fight the good fight, you know, and she was saying that she felt disassociated, where she felt like it was a part of her but separate. And she had a scared little part of her in the corner, and this anger was, you know, big in front of her. And so we went in and we said, what does this scared little girl need so that the anger is no longer needed as this protective mechanism? And so we resolved that hurt, and the anger just dissolved in front of her eyes. It was no longer needed. And so we were able to heal that origin of the wound. And afterwards, she's like, I'm so light now. I feel so different, because when you change your operating system, you are different. You know, you're not trying to work with your conscious mind
That's for sure.
and will things into existence. You're going to the actual core of it. You're remedying it there. And then you're seeing how life wants to play out from that point forward. You know, so it's such powerful work when you're going directly into that subconscious mind.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds very, very intriguing to,
Yes.
you know, to do it that way, to be able to solve the things. Cause I think we block out so much, and we just, you know, don't even know where to start sometimes to,
It's
and
true.
real, you know,
Yeah.
think it's anger, but it's actually being frightened or being, you know,
Mhm.
insecure or whatever it is. And it masks as
Yeah.
something else because, like you said, that's our defense mechanism we've thrown up to protect that small inner child, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We typically see the symptom, not the core,
Yeah, exactly.
you know? Yeah.
So if you had a final thought to leave with our listeners, what would it be?
That's a good question. Yeah, I would probably say to like tangibly schedule some time, even if it's 30 minutes a day, just with nothing in your schedule, and just start to see what you're drawn towards, what you feel like, what you want, you know, without necessarily an agenda where I have to journal or I have to meditate or I have to walk or whatever, all those things that we have to, that we should all over ourselves. I said, oh no, don't should all over yourself, you know? um, but just to schedule a time for yourself to start to get in touch with who you are underneath all the programs and the defaults and things that tend to operate in life. Just start to get to know you again, I think would be my advice for people, because we have the opportunity now more than ever before to be able to do that. We just need to slow down enough to listen.
That's true.
I love that.
That is so true.
Yeah, it is true. And can you tell everybody where to find you?
Yeah, my website is probably the best place at jeanatman.com. I've got different offerings on there, and a blog that I haven't really paid much attention to lately. I've just been busy doing other things, but there's some things on there. But yeah, my website would probably be the best place.
Perfect. Well, it's been such a pleasure. I
Good
know,
information.
I know that you've taken in so much because I can see your mind working, and I've taken in so much by what you've shared. And so we really appreciate talking with you, and your energy so light.
It is very
Lovely.
light. Very
So
light,
it's,
yes.
it's really been a pleasure for us to chat with you.
Yes, it is. Very much so.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Totally our
Yes.
pleasure.
Thank you for coming on, and we appreciate it. Maybe you'll come back another time. We can delve
Inspired.
in some more of, because I saw that you just, you know,
You have all
do
kinds
so
of things.
much.
Oh yeah, a lot going on up in his head.
Yeah,
For
And something's
sure.
going through my mind too as she's talking about, oh, I'd love to talk about that. Love talking about we'd be here forever.
That's right. I love
Yeah.
conversations like that.
Yeah, me too. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys.
And everybody else, tune in next time.
You bet.